The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, resigns. We'll have a live update. Cameroon opposition candidate Maurice Kamto claims an election win, but the ruling party says not so fast. And a Moroccan widow turns her home into a shelter for cancer patients. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidui. You're in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight with the shocking resignation of Nikki Haley as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. A short time ago, during a meeting at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump said Haley would be leaving her post at the end of the year. The president praised Haley for her work at the United Nations. He also said he was fond of Haley and called her his friend, and even expressed hope that she would come back to his administration in a different role. Here is more of what the president had to say.
At the end of the year, Nikki will be leaving and will be in constant touch. I know that. Whenever you have any ideas, you're going to call me because you know all the players. And that was really the thing I think she did best at the United Nations. She got to know the players. She got to know China, Russia, India. She knows everybody on a very first-name basis, and they like her, except for maybe a couple, which is normal, right? They can't all like you, but they do. They really like her, and I think maybe more importantly, they respect her.
Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, has been a relatively moderate voice in President Trump's cabinet. Her appointment as UN ambassador was originally seen as something of a surprise, since she had been viewed as a critic of the president's confrontational style during the 2016 presidential campaign, as well as a proponent of free markets and global trade, in contrast to the president's America First policies. Here's what Haley had to say about leaving her UN post.
Look at the 2 years. Look at what has happened in 2 years with the United States on foreign policy. Now the United States is respected. Countries may not like what we do, but they respect what we do. They know that if we say we're going to do something, we follow it through, and the president proved that, whether it was with the chemical weapons in Syria, whether it's with NATO, saying that other countries have to pay their share. I mean, whether it's the trade deals, which have been amazing. They get that the president means business, and they follow through with that.
Now, for more on Ambassador Haley's resignation as the highest-ranking woman in President Trump's administration, VOA White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara joins me in the studio. Patsy, welcome to Africa 54. You know, the big question, this just came out, and it's why now?
Yeah, well, there are speculations, but the short answer is that we don't know. What we do know is from the press conference when President Trump said that she did inform him about 6 months ago that she will be leaving because she needed a break and that she will be only staying until the end of the year. Now, Nikki Haley herself did not really say what the reason was for her resignation, gave no information about what she's going to do next. She said that she's not leaving for personal reasons because she said that her family supports her. She only said that she believes in term limits and she knows when to step aside and let somebody else do the job, and she wants the administration to have the best person to fight their interests at the UN. Now, what this exactly means, we don't know.
You know, another interesting angle is to see the cable news already had her news up like she has resigned minutes before she even went to the White House to meet with the president. What do you make of that?
This is very common. I mean, you know, leaks are very common, and Axios was the one who had the scoop this morning, and they announced that, or they reported that the president last week met with Haley, according to two anonymous administration sources, that she's leaving. So this is very common.
Let's look back, and if you can summarize a little bit about her, you know, foreign policy, her role as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and then her role in terms of setting policy for Africa.
Yeah, well, I think we do know that she's one of the strongest members of the Trump administration's foreign policy team. And I think specifically about Africa, she is seen widely as somebody who's more nuanced on African policy. The general perception is that the Trump administration does not put a lot of emphasis on Africa, does not see Africa beyond the lens of countering the influence of China or helping in the fight against terrorism, and also for humanitarian aid, which Trump himself is proposing to cut. Nikki Haley sees Africa Africa as beyond that, seeing it as more strategic and economic and not just humanitarian. And you, of course, remember her visit in 2017 to Ethiopia, DRC, and also South Sudan was widely seen as a success. And in fact, 2 weeks after her visit to Africa, after she demanded to President Joseph Kabila that he would announce the elections, and then 2 weeks later he did.
And she's been very vocal, especially about South Sudan,
yes,
getting, the political situation back to stabilizing the country. She actually said, the leaders there are responsible for the mess that we see in South Sudan, Patsy.
Indeed, and we see this as Nikki Haley being a very strong and powerful voice for the administrations on many issues, being able to target the issues that are not so well formulated, perhaps in the White House. And so I think in the past 2 years, Nikki Haley has succeeded in simultaneously presenting that she's a team player for the White House, but also at the same time having her own voice. Now, what this might mean for Nikki Haley's future, this is the speculation that's going around in Washington, including whether or not she'll run into 2020.
That's very well said. Thank you so much. We'll be watching and seeing what happens next. Patsy Widakuswara is VOA White House correspondent. Now, an opposition candidate is claiming victory in Sunday's Cameroonian presidential election, even as the votes are still being counted. Maurice Kamto of the Cameroon Resistance Movement presented no results to back up his claim. Election officials warned Kamto and others who may try to declare victory that they would be breaking the law. Longtime President, 85-year-old Paul Biya, is expected to be re-elected to another 7-year term after 36 years as president. Biya is one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. Despite low turnout, election-related violence and minor irregularities, African Union observers called Sunday's poll a success. Final results are not expected for at least 2 weeks. Now, for more reaction on the Cameroonian presidential election, VOA's Bagassi Kura joins me by phone from Yaoundé. Bagassi, good evening. Bagassi, can you hear me? Hello, Bagassi. All right. All right, we're moving on to the International Monetary Fund. On Tuesday, cut its global economic growth forecast for 2018 and 2019, saying that U.S.-China trade war was taking a toll and emerging markets are struggling with tighter liquidity and capital outflows. The new forecast, released on the Indonesian resort island of Bali, where the IMF and World Bank annual meetings are underway, show that a burst of strong growth, fueled partly by U.S. tax cuts and rising demand for imports, was starting to wane. Christine Lagarde is IMF's managing director.
We need to make sure that there is level playing field, that there is proper competition and not unfair competition between players. Everybody needs to look at those issues, but it needs to be done together. That's really what we will continue to argue as a case for more international trade, more openness, and more benefits.
The downgrade reflects a combination of factors, including the introduction of import tariffs between the United States and China, weaker performances by Eurozone countries, and rising interest rates that are pressuring some emerging markets with capital outflows such as South Africa, some Latin American countries, as well as Asia. Gary White is chief investment commentator at Charles Stanley.
It will crimp global growth. However, this year we're sort of going to see above trend global growth. Next year, we have a dampening. If even in a full-blown trade war, the IMF see just 0.8% of global GDP growth. And when it's around 3%, we're not too concerned about any recession coming from the actions of Donald Trump with China. Although hopefully we can have some sort of resolution, which will be a great positive for global markets.
The IMF said in an update to its World Economic Outlook that it is now predicting 3.7% global growth in both 2018 and 2019, down from its July forecast of 3.9% growth for both years. Just 3 days after he was narrowly confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court despite facing allegations of sexual assault, Brett Kavanaugh took his seat on the bench on Tuesday morning, solidifying a conservative majority for years to come. Kavanaugh, 53, joins 8 other justices to hear arguments in cases involving a federal criminal sentencing law, bringing the 9-member court back up to full strength after the retirement of Anthony Kennedy in July. Kavanaugh's confirmation gave Republican President Donald Trump a major victory with his second lifetime appointee to the nation's highest judicial body. Neil Gorsuch joined the court last year. Kavanaugh's confirmation to the Supreme Court follows a bruising political process in the Senate that bitterly divided the nation. He is vowing to hear every case with respect and in an open mind. He also spoke about his intentions shortly after a ceremonial swearing in at the White House.
Every American can be assured that I will be an independent and impartial justice, devoted to equal justice under law.
Independent court analysts predict Kavanaugh is likely to concur with more conservative interpretations of the law, giving a solid 5-4 ideological edge on the court to those who lean to the right. Before Kavanaugh's swearing in, Trump offered an apology to Kavanaugh and his family, alluding to the scrutiny over the allegation he sexually assaulted a girl while in high school. Kavanaugh denied the accusation by Christine Blasey Ford, now a university professor in California.
On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure. You, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent.
The FBI probe into the allegations was not a criminal investigation, and its report offered no conclusion of guilt or innocence. Kavanaugh was officially sworn in Saturday, just after the Senate narrowly confirmed him by a vote of 50 to 48 to the lifetime seat on the country's highest court. Hours before Monday evening's White House event, Trump accused opposition Democrats of already plotting to remove Kavanaugh from the bench. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, in Morocco, a home for cancer patients. But first, a look at Tuesday's headlines.
In Cameroon, Maurice Kamto claims victory following the country's polls despite a warning from the government not to announce unofficial results. Madagascar's election race officially opens with 36 candidates before the official date on November 7th. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa calls for a doctrine of peace on the 8th annual Desmond Tutu International Peace Lecture.
We're grateful because we never got a chance to say thank you.
Finally, in Ivory Coast, rapper and activist Tiken Jah Fakoly is recording his latest album in Abidjan in collaboration with other artists from West Africa. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.
It's time now for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with more news on the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Lino?
That's right, Esther. The World Health Organization says breast cancer is the top cancer in women, both in the developed and the developing world. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a worldwide annual campaign to highlight the importance of breast awareness, education, and research. Meanwhile, the 8th Annual International Breast Cancer Prevention Symposium is wrapping up in West Lafayette, Indiana. It is organized by International Breast Cancer and Nutrition. And joining me live via Skype from West Lafayette, Indiana, for more is Professor Sophie Lelièvre, Professor of Cancer Pharmacology with Purdue University and co-leader of International Breast Cancer and Nutrition. Also joining us via Skype from West Lafayette is Dr. Beatrice Uyafieh-Addai, CEO of Ghana Peace and Love Hospitals and President and founder of Breast Care International. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So let me start with you, Professor Lelièvre. Talk to us about the symposium. This is the 8th edition. How far have we come with regards to the fight against breast cancer as it pertains to the conference?
Well, we have gone quite far because we have now reached the level of applications with this symposium being dedicated to technologies. So we have actually heard from engineers of how they will be able to help better assess risk, hopefully in the near future, without any invasive methods, of course, risk for breast cancer. And this is a major advance for us to have our engineer collaborators join in this conference. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that we have realized that beyond nutrition, which is an important factor in risk for breast cancer, we have to also look at how the food we eat is affected by the environment, pollution, and so on in the plants. And this is an important aspect that we have to integrate now in our studies.
Great. And Dr. Uyafieh-Addai, let me come to you. We talked about how far we've come. What about what is happening on the continent with regards to African women and Ghanaian women in particular?
Thank you so much. Yes, we are happy to be part of this International Breast Cancer and Nutrition project because it's one of the few organizations that's looking at how we can prevent breast cancer and at the epigenome level. In Africa and in Ghana, we have a lot of cases, even though our overall incidence is not that huge as compared to the developed world. The mortality is too high, unacceptably too high. And so we are doing all we can to help our women to come to the hospital early so we can have early stage disease for meaningful treatments. Unfortunately, our women are not coming early, so they are dying. A lot of women are dying needlessly and prematurely from breast cancer. So it's important for us to have this collaboration and to learn what is new in the cancer world so we can apply it.
Okay, and Professor Lelièvre, when we look at innovation in terms of prevention, which is really one of the key aspects that you are looking at during this symposium, what do you see as the way forward that could, the innovation that we should look forward to?
Well, I think that one of the major innovations is that we are realizing that we need to act extremely early during life, meaning that we have to work with families to look at how to prevent the risk for breast cancer or decrease the risk for breast cancer actually already from childhood by really modifying how we interact with the environment. So that's really important that we start early on when there's exercise and so on, which is good anyway. It has to be happening already extremely early in age. And if we implement that already, it's going to make a major difference. And the other thing is we see that there's actually now more awareness about the importance of stopping cancer before it starts. And this is starting to change the view of some of our policymakers. Not enough, but this will be very important. We have to have that happen. Otherwise, we won't be able to really make strides fast in the future. So this is, I think, the two major things.
Okay, and Dr. Uyafieh-Addai, Professor Lelièvre mentioned earlier nutrition. To what extent are women in Africa, in where you are, aware of the fact that there may be a connection between what we eat and the development of breast cancer?
Yes, that is one of the things that we are trying to let our women know. And what we have to also bear in mind is that we still don't know the exact cause of breast cancer. So all we can do is to act on the risk factors that we can change. And these can be lifestyle changes. The nutrition is very important because, you know, in Africa, diet is always very heavy, and lack of exercise is also having a toll on us. And the other non-communicables like diabetes. So we need to try and tell our women to eat healthy and to exercise a little, and also to go away from alcohol, excessive alcohol consumption, and cigarette smoking. These are things we can do to help ourselves, since we cannot stop the disease from coming at the moment.
Okay. And Professor Leliev, when we talk about eating healthy, can you give us a sense of what we're looking at? What can be a good prevention steps in terms of what to eat?
Well, we already know that whatever food is pro-inflammatory is a danger. So that means too much sugar or too much of the type of fats that would be like sometimes in the meat and so on. And the problem is that it's although we know this is important to eat healthy, we need to adapt to each population. This is what makes the things a little bit difficult to do. But definitely having one type of diet is not good enough. We have to diversify our diet and try to avoid at all costs processed food. That's for sure is now shown to be extremely detrimental. So the more processed the food, either to keep it from being spoiled or just to make it, different type of food we can buy. It's easy to eat and so on. We should avoid that. We should actually go back to the ancestral way of eating that we have lost, unfortunately.
Okay. And Dr. Wiyafi Adai, when we look at women in Africa and perhaps the role that public policies and even leaders can play, what do you see, where should be the focus to help to contribute to this fight?
Yeah, thank you so much. In fact, a lot needs to be done. When you see how the developed world is putting in so much on research, and so we need to also, apart from educating our people and creating awareness, we have to help our women to access help, to be able to get the help they need, irrespective of where they live, and also to try and minimize the harmful effects of pesticides and those chemicals that we use in our farms, because all those things come into the food that we consume, and we know that they are not good for our health. Okay. So we will ask our policymakers to put in more effort to, prevent disease and to help those who have already contracted the diseases.
Thank you. We have to leave it there. Dr. Wiyafi Adai, thank you so much for joining us, along with Professor Lelievre, and that was Professor Sophie Lelievre. She is co-leader of International Breast Cancer and Nutrition, and Dr. Beatrice Wiyafi Adai. She is president and founder of Breast Care International. Now to Morocco, where a widow has turned her home in the capital, Rabat, into a shelter for cancer patients after realizing how many people were forced to abandon outpatient treatment because of the high cost of reaching the city and finding lodgings. 72-year-old Khadija Ayad Al-Korti founded the Jannat Association in 2009, just a few months after her husband died of cancer. The association provides free accommodations for patients and their families and free meals for the duration of their stay.
I saw that there are a lot of patients who needed a helping hand, a compassionate mother and a good heart who can take care of them. After the death of my husband, I thought of helping these people, and I opened my house to them to help them. I opened it free of charge. I opened it to strangers.
Al-Korti cares for 15 women in her home, and she rents an apartment nearby to house 15 more. Hassania Kayati is one of the women. The 45-year-old breast cancer patient has been staying in the shelter on and off since 2017.
We could not find anyone doing what the people in this association are doing for us. Even our relatives could not take care of us because we were poor.
Al-Korti relies on her late husband's pension of about $47 a month to help fund her charity work. Akote's shelter is so successful and important, the local government and private donors now contribute to her association to help her afford the 4,000 Moroccan dirham or $422 rent.
We could not find a welcome like this, even in our families. People may receive you and help you for a week or 10 days, but not more. We have been here for 2 months now. The way we were welcomed on the first day is still the same until now. Nothing changed. They help us with medicine and transport. We thank God for this.
Official figures show that the number of cancer cases is steadily rising in Morocco, and 40,000 new patients are registered each year in the country. Breast cancer is the most prevalent, followed by cervical cancer and thyroid cancer. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Esther, back to you. Thank you, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. And welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Cutting-edge research in LED lighting promises to revolutionize smartphone screen and virtual reality goggles technology, while also potentially helping scientists understand epileptic seizures, say Swedish researchers. Smaller diodes created by the research team have greatly reduced pixel size, potentially making virtual reality and augmented reality a better experience for users, eliminating discomfort. Blue LEDs they have produced are so small they could be used to stimulate single neurons, programming them to react to blue or red light. Next up, it's not unusual for video games to depict dystopian hellscapes. Not Tonight, by London-based developer Panic Burn, presents an alternative Britain where Brexit talks have collapsed. A far-right government has seized control and people with European heritage have been rounded up and rehoused in relocation blocks. The platform game uses a retro-style, two-dimensional pixel art. Games play a bouncer who must man the door at various pubs, clubs and parties to make ends meet. But as anti-European legislation takes hold, it's not just people's age that's a factor, it's also their heritage. And finally, this tiny caterpillar-like creature is one of the latest robots being developed by scientists in Hong Kong. With soft, flexible legs, it's capable of carrying heavy loads and is adaptable to hostile environments. Inspired by the fleet and leg structures of many living organisms and with high locomotion efficiency, it could pave the way for medical technology advancements such as drugs delivery in the human body. The Mealy robot can lift up one end of its body to form an angle of up to 90 degrees and cross an obstacle. And that's what's trending today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression sounds like a violent way of eating, but it's actually not always about eating.
Here is your Russian book, Anna. Thanks for letting me borrow it.
Oh, are you done with level 1 already?
Yeah, I finished last week, and I've already finished level 2.
Wow, you are really sinking your teeth into learning Russian.